Hamas demands the UK remove terrorist label and calls it free speech. Outrageous, my friends, I tell you. Okay, in an audacious legal move, Hamas has petitioned the UK government to lift its designation as a terrorist organization, claiming it's merely exercising freedom of speech on behalf of Palestinian resistance. The Islamist group responsible for the October 7th massacre of 1,200 Israelis and the abduction of hundreds more filed a 106-page request through the controversial London law firm Riverway Law, arguing that the ban violates their rights under the European Convention on Human Rights. Hamas official Mousa Abu Marzouk insisted, so he's kind of the one initiating this. Quote, Hamas does not and has never opposed a threat to Britain, and accused the UK of supporting Zionism, apartheid, occupation, and ethnic cleansing. The UK banned Hamas's military wing in 2001 and its political wing in 2021, declaring it a complex but single terrorist organization. Critics slammed the move. Former Home Secretary Priti Patel called Hamas an evil Iranian-backed terrorist organization that kidnaps, tortures, and murders people, including British nationals. As the UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper weighs the decision, Hamas's attempt to rebrand its genocidal ideology as political activism highlights the growing challenge of Islamist lawfare in Western democracies. So there is a lot to get into here. And I think I just need to start out with saying, like, this just breaks my brain. The irony of being like, we're demanding rights under the European Commission human rights, and this is so unfair and it's a violation. Well, like, lately I feel like every single day I can find a new video of Hamas militiamen shooting random Gazans dead in the street, and they're going to complain to the UK about freedom of speech. But over the past couple months, like, how many videos have we seen of them, like, dragging a random man who was at an anti-Hamas protests, like, through the street and shooting him dead? Like, it's just so rich. Like, I can never get over the bald face cry bullying of Islamists. Their ability to perpetuate straight up the most intolerant, barbaric jihad against others and then turn around and play the victim never ceases to amaze me. It never ceases to amaze me. Doesn't matter what level of hatred and barbarity they perpetuate, still turn around, groups all across the world then turn around and play the victim. It's insanity. Okay. So, oh my gosh. There are three main arguments. There are three main arguments in their petition. And first, they claim that the prescription of Hamas as a terrorist organization violates Britain's obligations under international law. How? How does it do this, you might ask? How does it do this? They say that it is violating Britain's obligations under international law, in particular, the duty to prevent genocide and crimes against humanity. So basically, they are characterizing Israel's actions as an ongoing genocide, and they are characterizing Hamas as the only military force resisting. And therefore, by banning Hamas, UK is complicit in suppressing the resistance and then therefore perpetuating a genocide.
What?
So that's argument number one. Do you want Should I repeat myself? So they're basically saying
this. Did they know October 7th happened? So they're saying that they're actually arguing, like, are these Hamas members aware that other Hamas members did October 7th? Like, are they aware?
No. I'll get into it, but basically the legal complaint does acknowledge that Hamas currently fits the definition of terrorism. The legal complaint acknowledges that. The legal complaint acknowledges that. Big admission. I don't know, guys. That seems like a pretty big admission. but they're trying to reframe it. And this is what's so insidious, and I'll get into this. They're trying to completely reframe it. Right? So basically, this is argument number one. Is that
so wait, they're saying we did terrorism and we are terrorists, but don't call us terrorists?
No. Well, no. I'll get into it, but it's very terrorist rights. You know, who's going to speak up for the terrorist rights?
Right. I mean, to be fair, terrorists
first they came for the terrorists.
This is I mean, terrorists do have rights, but not being called terrorists is not one of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So no, it actually gets really, really disgusting, because they basically try to, I'll get into it, but basically they try to be like, how are we any different than Ukraine? And when I was studying this last night, I lost my shit, and I was just texting Armin about how bleak I felt because I was losing my mind reading this stuff. But okay, so let us emphasize the summary of point. Hate the terror, not the terror.
Oh God. What the hell?
Oh my God. Okay. So let's summarize point number one. They're like, look, you know, Israel's committing a genocide. There are, rulings about Israel's illegality of the occupation, and therefore we have a right to armed resistance under foreign occupation, and we are the only people doing this, and so we're basically engaged in a lawful struggle against colonial oppression. And so if you are against us, if you're prescribing us, you are basically complicit in and part of the perpetuation of the colonial violence against us. And that's kind of point number one. And this is where things, they basically start drawing, in this first point, they start drawing analogies to, they compare themselves basically to the African National Congress and the IRA. So, by the way, like, I'm no fan of the IRA. I was like, is that supposed to be in your favor? Like, no, I kind of fucking hate them. Like,
okay.
Look. Like, I have Irish people in my family. I'm not talking about like Irish American. I'm talking like Irish from the homeland, like first gen Irish people in my family. And they don't remember that part of their history fondly. Like, I don't know if they're like, oh, we're just like the IRA. I'm like, excuse me? Anyway. Look. Like.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just saying they kind of seem like fucking losers to me. But that's besides the point. Okay, So here's the second argument they make. Second, Hamas contends that the ban infringes on fundamental rights protected by the European Convention on Human Rights, or ECHR. In particular, they cite the rights to freedom of expression and assembly. Okay, so what are they even talking about here? They're talking about how people have been prosecuted for showing support for Hamas. So they're basically, in the second point, they're basically saying that people should be able to openly and publicly be able to be like supporting Hamas and not have that be a violation of the law, because right now it is. And we've talked about some of these cases. Like, for example, there were the girls in a pro-Palestine protest that were walking around with pictures of the paratroopers, the parachuting jihadists, on their, like, taped onto their jackets. And there was one girl who was prosecuted for that. Ironically, she herself was a refugee who had escaped Gaza because of Hamas. The entire point of her refugee claim was that she was being persecuted by Hamas. And then she's in this pro-Palestine protest, like, with Hamas, parachuters taped on her. And so that's one example, right? Okay, so let's walk through the second point. Because the UK law makes it a criminal offense to belong to Hamas, to show or express support for it, to wear clothing or displaying articles indicating support, they're saying that this is restricting open debate on Palestinian issues. And this chills the right to protest, and this is chilling free speech. And to this point, the lawyers are even saying, we are representing Hamas pro bono. That's a crazy sentence. That's a crazy sentence. They're like, we're representing Hamas for free, and it is my honor to do so. Like, fuck. Because they're saying, well, we have to represent them for free because it would be illegal to receive payment from them for our services under these laws, and that this is stifling honest debate. And
so they're like, we can't, you guys are making us not get paid because we can support Hamas right now, but because you labeled them as a terrorist group, if we get paid for it, this would be illegal. You're messing with our way of life, and we are providing services for society by supporting Hamas and not getting paid for our services. Okay.
And Kenya is saying they're trying to pretend Hamas is just some political movement. Here's the thing: for 20 years, part of Hamas was not prescribed. In 2001, the armed branch, the Qassam Brigade of Hamas, was prescribed as a terrorist organization, but the political wing wasn't. The political wing of Hamas was not prescribed as a terrorist organization until 2021. And when they prescribed it in 2021, they said, we're doing this because, look, this is a complex organization, but ultimately it's all part of the same thing. So for 20 years, part of Hamas was just treated as some political movement. And they changed that. So then the third point that they're making is that this prescription. And one thing that I want to point out, guys, this is really, really important, is that if theoretically this prescription was to be removed, that would allow people to fundraise and send money to Hamas directly from the UK.
What are the chances of this one? What are the chances?
I'll get into that in a second. But that's kind of one thing that's like not really mentioned in the complaint. But one of the consequences, if this was to be removed, is that you could just send money to Hamas directly from the UK. So it's like, oh, I wonder what some incentives are. So they are asserting in their third point that this prescription, this designation, is disproportionate and unjustified. And they are saying this because they say we pose no direct threat to the UK's national security. We pose no direct threat. Our activities are confined to Israel and Palestine. And therefore, this is excessive because it is penalizing the Palestinian people's chosen political representation. We won democratic elections in 2006. Look, that was 20 years ago. Let's not talk about the fact that was 20 years ago, hasn't happened since, but they were chosen at the time. And therefore, this prescription is undermining their self-determination. It's undermining their democratic will. And then this is where the, plaintiff is saying, Marzouk, he's saying, oh, this is just a century of unwavering support for Zionism. And, yeah. He's inviting the Home Secretary to depart from the British state's morally and legally indefensible policy of siding with the Zionist oppressor. So basically, they in total, you could frame it as not only a legal case, but they're trying to kind of make a moral and historical appeal through this legal case. Um, so there's a lot more that I could get into and more that I will get into, but I think now would be like a good moment to pause and watch some of the videos that has been put out by these lawyers. And I also want to talk about who these lawyers are and why they sketchy. We
But
got
but
some rotten
but
apples here.
okay, Susie, I'm panicking about the future a little bit. Can you see if this is justified, this fear or not? Okay, because we're seeing right now with the UK at I don't know 6% Muslim, right? And even if this fails, I'm thinking that if we keep going in this direction and eventually UK turns from 6% to 10% Muslim, stuff like this, a lot of Muslims in the UK would become a lot more political, and stuff like this would actually work and they will succeed. And given the large populations of Muslims in the UK, so basically we could have people from Pakistan move, and also once they become more politically active, they could open the door to more. I don't know, for example, Pakistanis even moving to the UK because they could change the laws to accept more migration as well, so to make it faster. But basically, we get higher income level Pakistanis to come to UK and in a society and make them somewhat more have more income and more political power, change the laws, and then these Pakistanis will make money in the UK and then fund political organizations in the UK to fund Hamas against Israel. And at some point, the UK could be competing with the current Islamic Republic in Iran and Qatar when it comes to one of the greatest threats to funding or groups, militias, and terrorist groups against Israel. Given that, and now this one is actually a first world country and in the EU. So, is this like something that we could be
Well, Britain isn't in the
seeing?
EU. Um,
I mean, sorry, I mean Europe, not EU,
yeah.
Europe.
Like, look, now do you understand why I was texting you like that last night?
Yes, yes. Okay, mom.
Like, look, I share that fear.
Okay,
I worry about
all
that.
right. So
I worry about
I'm
that.
not a man. Okay, all right. Muhammad in the chat was also saying Muhammad is saying, as someone in the UK, I share your fear, Armin. Okay, okay, guys, we can panic. We're allowed to panic. Hit the panic button. But go on, Susan.
I don't know. I feel like this is why we need. Oh, and one. I mean, this is going to be a real problem. We're going to cover this next week in more detail, but there was this one girl that was recently elected in the UK that openly talks about how it's a deep concern of the Muslim community how there's free mixing in public parks, meaning how there's free mixing of men and women in public parks. And that this person who's newly elected in the UK is like, yeah, we need to be doing something about the free mixing in the parks. Like, no, this is fucked. And
Wow.
we'll talk about that more later. But I cannot reasonably blame anyone for being like, why the fuck did we bring this problem into our country? Imagine being like a British feminist and being like, what the hell did we fight for so long? But that's a different discussion.
Do
Oh,
you want
sorry.
to be you want there? You want to bring up this video that
Yeah.
you told me? Okay, wait, hold on. What the hell is this? Like Avengers? Okay, you play it.
Yes, this is the lawyers. Look at them. Look at them. Okay, and we're gonna talk about some of these dudes later.
We are instructed by Hamas. We are today at the Home Office.
First of all, crazy sentence to start off with.
Wait, what? That's how they start the video?
Yes, this is their video.
Okay. What? Like they put Hamas on the video? Like
The
they're not
Hamas
even
case.
hiding
That's what
it.
they call it. They like have this whole website for it. They have this whole website and they're calling it the Hamas case.
Like they're not even. This is not like they have completely taking the mask off and burned it. Like they haven't taken the mask does not even exist. Like what?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Crazy way to start. Okay, let's continue.
We are instructed by Hamas. We are today at the Home Office, and we are going to hand in an application under Section 4 of the Terrorism Act to have them removed from the list of proscribed organisations. We have the application in here, which contains very, very strong legal arguments grounded in national and international law, and we're about to hand it in to Yvette Cooper and ask her to have some courage and make the correct decision.
What the hell is happening?
And they're doing this for free, by the way.
What the hell is happening to the UK? Like every time I think like people are exaggerating how bad things are, and then I see something like they're not exaggerating. They're actually, they should be talking about this more.
Yeah.
What the fuck happening? Oh, this is another one. Hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Oops.
I will unmute for you because I can unmute for some reason and you can't. Okay. Play now
Okay.
whenever you.
And I love the video published by none other than 5 Pillars, but that's a different discussion.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Frank McGuinness. I'm a barrister called to the Bar of England and Wales. I'm instructed by the Islamic Resistance Movement, or Hamas, to make an application addressed to the British Home Secretary under Section 4 of the Terrorism Act 2000. Today, Hamas are asking to be removed from the list of banned organisations. I have 3 things to say. Firstly, I'm going to discuss the context and the seemingly terminal crisis of Zionism and Israeli apartheid. Secondly, I'll explore the 2 historical examples of South African apartheid and British colonialism in Ireland, which shed light on the use of the term terrorism to ban organisations. Finally, I'll explain why, without supporting the organisation itself, you are able to support this application. Israel is now a pariah state and finds itself in a seemingly terminal crisis. In the International Court of Justice, the International Criminal Court, and in domestic jurisdictions, a growing number of judgments and opinions have now fundamentally damaged Israel's standing and reputation. The ICJ's advisory opinion from July last year concluded that Israel is an apartheid state and is committing racial segregation. From as early as the 2004 advisory opinion, it has been clear that Israel's occupation, which has now lasted for more than half a century, is illegal under international law. South Africa, along with a growing number of national governments, including the EU member states of Ireland, Belgium, and Spain, have accused Israel of committing genocide. In January 2024, the ICJ ruled that it was plausible that Israel was breaching the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. In November last year, the ICC issued arrest warrants against Israel's sitting Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and its former Defense Minister, Yoav Gallant. These men are literally...
You know what, guys? Even if whatever he's saying is right, which is not, Hamas, how could you? Hamas said October 7th. You have people who attacked children, civilians. They raped and killed. They killed people's dogs. Like, even if Israel is apartheid and evil, what the hell? Like, all of what he's saying is a distraction from what Hamas stands for. Like, how could anybody even say these things with a straight face? Guys, don't fall in this trap, because when people say like, oh, Israel this and this and that, they want you to be like, well, no, Israel, no. You did October 7th. You're supporting Hamas. Hamas is worse than ISIS. What the hell is happening here?
fugitives. Netanyahu cannot visit the territory of some of his closest allies for fear that they will arrest him. On Monday this week, the Metropolitan Police in Britain were handed a dossier of evidence and invited to prosecute 10 British nationals who stand accused of committing war crimes and crimes against humanity while serving in the Israeli armed forces. South Africa's Foreign Minister, Naledi Pandor, said of South Africans who fight in the Israeli army, I quote, "We are ready when you come home, we are going to arrest you, end quote. Zionism is Israel's official ideology. It is the ideology of an apartheid regime and is explicitly racist. More and more people are reaching that conclusion. The ideology has become completely toxic, and even its staunchest allies are keenly aware of the increasingly unbearable price of associating with Zionism and Zionists. Israel is a pariah state. Its apartheid regime seems to be collapsing in front of our eyes. That raises the question of what will replace Israel if and when it collapses. That
Excuse me? Excuse me? Okay, they're just getting
Okay.
ready.
Okay, we just entered into Delulu land.
I would say good luck to everybody. Okay, yeah. Let's continue.
Like, sometimes people really think that it's like hanging on by a thread.
Mm.
Oh my word.
is the broader context in which this application by Hamas should be understood. This takes us to my second point, the historical examples of South African apartheid and Ireland. Let me start by talking about Nelson Mandela. Today, he is widely regarded as one of the most courageous freedom fighters in human history. His name is synonymous with profound integrity and with the personal sacrifices he made to confront and help defeat South African apartheid. In 1961, he founded Umkhonto we Sizwe, or the Tip of the Spear, the armed wing of the African National Congress. Britain and the United States were staunch allies of South Africa's apartheid regime of racial domination. At the notorious Rivonia trial, Mandela found himself addressing a judge who had the power to kill him. At that trial, Mandela said, I quote, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal for which I hope to live and to see realized. But my Lord, if it needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." End quote.
And just a quick reminder that South Africa was apartheid, and Israel is a country where Arab judges have sentenced 2 Jewish prime ministers to jail, and the 20% Arab population enjoys all the rights that the Jewish population do, and sometimes even more when it comes to military service, it being mandatory or not. So I don't know what your definition of apartheid is, but Israel is nothing remotely close to an apartheid. However, the Palestinian territories are definitely apartheid, because unlike in Israel, where Arabs could live, enjoy equal rights like the Jewish population, no Jew could even live in Gaza or the West Bank, let alone have equal rights. So if you're looking for apartheid, look into Gaza and the West Bank. But yeah, let's continue.
He was, of course, imprisoned for decades on Robben Island. After his eventual release, he served as the first black president in post-apartheid South Africa. So today, Mandela is regarded as a hero, but at the time, when it mattered most, he was labelled a terrorist, including by the British government. It's important to note how the passage of time and history can change people's perspective. Closer to home in Britain, we have the Irish example. The death of Bobby Sands while on hunger strike marks a pivotal turning point in the struggle for a united Ireland. At the time of his death, he sat on the Army Council of the Provisional IRA, a proscribed organisation. The hunger strike protested the Thatcher government's policy of criminalisation, summarised in her infamous suggestion, quote, "Crime is crime is crime. It is not political," end quote. From his prison cell, Bobby Sands won election to the British Parliament, and then he died from hunger. He was 27 years old. His electoral victory led to a fundamental strategic shift in Sinn Féin, the political wing of the Provisional IRA. The organisation's new policy of abstentionism helped lay the foundations for the Good Friday Agreement of 1998. Fast forward to today, Michelle O'Neill, a member of Sinn Féin, is the First Minister in Stormont, and Mary Lou MacDonald is the leader of the party. Mercifully, the north of Ireland is much more peaceful today than it was in Bobby Sands' time.
To be honest, I mean, I remember watching a documentary about Bobby Sands because I was trying to understand why people like worship him so much. And I was like, you are doing this shit because you want to not have to wear like a prison uniform and not do prison work and all this other stuff. And like you're smearing poo on the wall and you starve yourself to death over this. Like I genuinely entered with an open mind. And after watching it, I was like, what's the big deal? I don't know. I don't know. It's like,
That was his activism, spreading poo on the wall.
that's one of the things that they did. Yeah. They were basically
Oh
to
my
be
God.
like as oppositional as possible. And one of their things was is that they didn't want to have to wear a prison. But that's what I remember sticking in my head the most. I was like, you don't want to wear a prison uniform? Like you're in prison, you have to wear a uniform. That's I mean, also like in case you escape, that's why we keep you in uniform. Like what?
Right.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know, man. I was expecting to be a lot more sympathetic.
These two historical examples are referenced in the application. They provide important historical context for the way that people's perceptions of organizations designated as terrorist can and do change over time. This takes me to my third point, which is the application itself. What is it about? How can you understand it? And how can you support it if you want to? Someone can support an application for deprescription without supporting the organization that makes it. Nothing in the application changes the law as it currently stands, and all of the potential offences in relation to Hamas remain for as long as the Secretary of State maintains their prescription. The legal basis of the application is extensive, and I invite you to read it in full. For now, I will simply say that it rests in part on well-established principles of international law. One of those principles is that peoples under occupation have a right to use armed force to resist their occupiers. It also rests on principles under the European Convention.
Okay, there's laws. Okay, let me actually teach this person something about international law. First of all, they're not under occupation because they were given multiple chances many times to form a country, and they refused because they would have to recognize Israel as a country as well. So Israel multiple times throughout its history tried to give Palestinians an opportunity to be a country. They refused because they couldn't accept Israel being a country as well. They said it's all or not. One. But also, so that's not. If it's an occupation, it's self-inflicted. And also, even if it's true that Israel is evil and you're occupied, and under international law, you do have the right to armed self-resistance, which you do if you're under occupation under international law. There are some under the same international law. There are standards for that. For example, mixing yourself with the civilian population will make your armed resistance illegal. Not wearing uniforms so that it's harder, using human shields and not wearing uniforms are illegal. Even if you're doing armed struggle, resistance struggle, killing the other side's civilians and children, for example, would make your armed struggle illegal. So don't just quote us one part of international law when it comes to your rights to arms resistance against occupation. Maybe look into all of it, Mr. Lawyer.
Convention on Human Rights, including those relating to free speech and expression under Article 10. In addition to legal arguments, the application also rests on facts and evidence. One such fact is that Hamas won an election in 2006. In conclusion, I am instructed by Hamas to make today's application. The apartheid state of Israel is in the process of collapsing, and Zionism is in a terminal crisis. This raises profound questions about what will replace it. History seems to tell us that it will be necessary for the British and other governments to speak to people and organisations who win elections, even and especially if one disagrees with some of their values and actions. The application has today been submitted to the British Secretary of State, and she is invited to take an important step towards peace by deprescribing Hamas. Gaurav Mayagiv. Thank you.
Okay, this is absolutely insane. So what are the chances of this winning?
So my understanding is not very likely. So this they submitted it. I believe this has to be like reviewed in 90 days. Based on statements that have been made by Yvette Cooper and some other people in the government, it seems very unlikely that they would accept this. I think Yvette Cooper came forward and said, no, like Hamas is a terrorist organization, but they have to have like an official rejection or whatever that hasn't come out yet. At which point it could go through various appeals processes. It could not. It depends on the nature of the rejection, but we have due process. Things can go to appeal. Based on everything I've seen so far, people do not believe that this will in any way be successful. But people do, even if it's not successful, a lot of people worry about this. You could almost see it as a marketing tactic.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like even when a legal action or lawfare isn't successful, it can still have its own marketing power. And people are
And
concerned about
legitimacy.
and they're worried about that impact within British society. One thing I do want to highlight is this law firm, because they have a little bit of a sketchy history of defending numerous accused Islamist terrorists over the years. So, for example, in October 2022, Riverway unsuccessfully challenged the Home Office's decision to exclude an Afghan national from the UK after he was assessed by MI5 to be an extremist who posed a risk to national security. So basically, there was an Afghan national where MI5 was like, no, this guy is a full-blown extremist. We're not going to allow him here. And they tried to challenge that. They failed. However, in June of 2021, they successfully challenged the Home Office's decision to refuse citizenship to an Algerian for his links to the, I don't know how to say this in French, but basically an Algerian terrorist Islamist outfit. And they were successful in that. They were successful in getting that guy citizenship. In November 2020, they successfully challenged the British government's decision to strip a British Pakistani man after he traveled to Syria to join ISIS.
Oh, lovely. Wow.
Yeah, lovely. The firm has also reportedly defended Muslims accused of sex crimes. Riverway successfully challenged the government's decision to strip Jin Jerigi of citizenship in August of 2023. The Albanian was convicted of raping a teenage girl and had lied about his nationality to obtain citizenship. And they successfully defended his citizenship. They successfully challenged the Home Office's decision to remove citizenship from a Pakistani man following his conviction of child rape. So they're like, no, we are going to defend. I mean, everyone has a right to defense, right? But it's just like when you look at the history of who you're defending and you're often helping them escape deportation. These are people that have been rendered to pose a threat to national security. And why would you continue to choose all of these kinds of cases when you can have great reputational damage to your firm? It's really weird. But of course, everyone is entitled to a defense, including Islamists. But when you have so many of these cases, people are going to be like, what the hell? I don't know. So what's also really concerning is one of the chief solicitor on this case So that means like the lead lawyer. What's his full name? His last name is, I think it's Fahad Ansari. His last name is Ansari. Wait, where do I have it written down? Ansari. Yeah, Fahad Ansari is the lead solicitor. And he is a sketchy character himself. And there was a scandal triggered when people started reviewing his social media, and the lead lawyer on this case was calling the beheading of Israeli babies on October 7th imaginary, claiming that various hostages were safer with Hamas, making certain comments about hostages that were sexually assaulted that I do not want to repeat. And basically also there was an instance where he was literally posting some Hamas propaganda. And so the discovery of this hate speech is in violation of various regulations regarding solicitors or lawyers, right? And their regulatory agencies. So once this was discovered, he's been reported to some of the bodies that govern what lawyers are doing, and they're saying that this law firm needs to be investigated and possibly struck off, because so basically there was what's this guy's position? The shadow justice secretary Robert Gendrick is saying, he noted, quote, a significant question as to whether Riverway has complied with their obligations under the UK sanctions regime and SRA's own published guidance and broader professional standards expected of solicitors. And he's saying, this is crazy to me. Fahad Ansari is a practicing lawyer who has been reported to counterterrorism policing on 6 occasions. For 2 decades, he has displayed public sympathy for terrorists from Hamas to the Taliban. He has, and then the shadow justice secretary goes on to say that Ansari has, quote, publicly eulogized dead jihadists and called for the spirit of jihad to be revived in Britain, saying this isn't legitimate anti-Israel criticism that we respect as free speech. So now they're like, okay, this chief lawyer on this case himself needs to be investigated for what the hell he's saying. This is craziness. So I wanted to make sure that we, acknowledge this guy's deal.
By the way, regarding the claim that no babies were beheaded, okay, it's true. The problem with that statement is because a lot of people don't misunderstand why I'm saying that that's a problem. Okay, so it's true that there are no evidence of any babies being beheaded, but the thing is that babies were killed, and some other people I think were beheaded, and some people mix this together, and the mixing is incorrect. But the people who go around saying like no babies were beheaded, no babies were beheaded, are like, okay, babies were killed. Like I really don't care how the fact is that the babies who lost their life that were murdered, after they're murdered, whether their head is attached to their body or not attached to their body is less of an issue. Okay, it's like, and it's a defense of Hamas, because imagine if somebody like kills their wife, and somebody like, well, in defense of them, like, oh, he didn't behead his wife. Like, he didn't behead his wife. He didn't behead his wife. I'm like, okay, he killed his wife. Like,
well, I think of it like this: like there was the misreporting about the 40 beheaded babies, and because that instance was exposed as misreporting, they throw that in the face of everyone trying to talk about the crimes that happened to delegitimize everything.
Exactly. That you basically explain it.
Which is so stupid because everyone knows that it's difficult to get facts on the ground in the fog of war. You know what I mean? Like, we all understand this, but that doesn't mean that all reporting that's happening coming out of there is all fake. It's that because that specific claim of that story happened like as October 7th was like breaking, like as fighters were still pushing back forces and killing terrorists. You know what I mean? I'm talking like fresh fog of war, fresh. We don't even fully like know what's going on fully.
Right. So actually, let me read. Yeah. No, go on. First you go on and
Well,
then
I mean, that just goes to say, like, it's a very cynical tactic to delegitimize everything.
right. So
It's like
on
if
October 7th, yeah.
I think of
Sorry, I
it
thought
like
you were
the
done.
whole Ukraine situation with the Snake Island. That's what it was called, right? That whole
Right,
Snake
right, right,
Island
right.
thing. And it's like, okay, well, the way that people were advertising that didn't actually happen. But that doesn't mean that all the reporting out of what's happening to Ukrainians is bullshit.
Yeah. So basically, the summary of it is that there's a lot of evidence for absolute disgusting, vile crimes. And of course, some of them will be wrong. And these people, as a way to delegitimize all of those reports, they go find the ones that eventually, obviously, some of them will be wrong, to use them to basically delegitimize the whole, everything that happened. So let me just read this. On October 7th, Hamas killed at least 29 children in Israel. Babies were shot, burned, or killed while their parents tried to protect them. Some bodies were badly damaged, but there is no verified evidence of beheading. Okay, so they were burned, shot, and killed while their parents were witnessing it and trying to defend them. Okay, but none of these babies were beheaded. Oh, wow. So, like, amazing. Good job. Like, Hamas completely whitewashed, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, but other people were beheaded. I mean, I've watched it on video.
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah. 29 children were killed, but these people are still defending Hamas. It's like a legitimate armed struggle. All right. So, do you want to read these comments from? So let's read this.
this person is saying they might as well sit there in uniforms with headbands and balaclavas instead of suits, smoking mirrors of the highest order. This is complete and utter lunacy.
Exactly. And this one.
I did like this comment that D found.
That was good. Good job, D. That was a good one. And this
one. So and this person is saying, like, arrest them and charge them with supporting a terrorist group, then raid their offices and find out who's funding them. So again, they're saying, oh no, we are pro bono. And we can't even accept funds because that'd be in violation of the law. And in fact, if you try to go to their website where you can go view their complaint for the Hamas case, as they call it, to enter the site, you have to acknowledge that you understand that their case is not them supporting the group.
How is it that in the UK, if you like a tweet that says, I don't know, something about trans people, the police might show up and arrest you? But this is not, I mean, that you didn't get paid for liking that post. So how could so they're like, hey, why can't that be a defense for that guy? Like, hey, why is the police at my home? I like this post on Facebook without getting paid. So how come?
Well, I mean, Armin, it's completely different. These are lawyers, and everyone has a right to defense.
I'm not saying this is okay I'm not suggesting that they should be arrested. I'm talking about the inconsistency. I'm just saying, why is it that you could arrest somebody in the UK for liking a post that is considered transphobic or bigoted, but this level of support for Hamas, which is as of right now in the UK is considered a terrorist group, why are they not getting arrested? Again, I think you misunderstood me. I'm not saying that they should be arrested. I'm just saying, why is there such an inconsistency?
Well, I mean, because I believe in two-tier policing, but that's a different conversation.
Okay, so Muhammad is saying they arrested for tweets or liking tweets in the UK is massively overstated. Okay, but I have seen videos of police showing up to people's houses for their posts on tweets and liking stuff. I'm not saying I didn't make a comment about how often it happens, but I know
the fact that it happens at all is insane.
Yeah, it has happened. I'm not, like, when you say overstated, it would be overstated if I said it happened by this much, but it only is happening by that much. But I know that at least it's happening sometimes. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay. By the way, we got a lot of super chats and support this time.
Yeah, let's go through the super chats. Okay, so John is saying, oh, thank you for the super chat, John. Saying, thinking of getting into your technology/AI channel, Armin. By the way, have you seen at Jesus is Busy, aka God Loves Dogs content on YouTube? Thank me later. Okay, apparently this is something we need to look into.
Wait, what is it? God loves dogs content. Okay. Jesus baby. Okay, I will try to remember this.
This sounds like
Okay,
some
I will.
chaos.
But okay, but
Um,
also here's what he's talking about, guys. I have a personal channel called Armin Navabi where I talk about the future of technology, AI, and everything. So that's what he's talking about. And thank you, John.
Granny Rose gave a $1 super chat with no comment. Thank you, Granny.
Thank you for your support.
How does calling Hamas terrorists violate their free speech? So no, the idea is that because it's against UK law to be a member of an organization, to have clothing that would lead one to reasonably believe that you're supporting an organization, like etc., that the free speech of people within Britain is being violated. So that's part of it. And I answered that question. Okay. Oh, and Kenny also gifted 5 Atheist Republic memberships. Thank you so much, Kenny.
Thank you. Thank you, Kenny.
Amit is celebrating his membership. Thank you, Amit. Saying, can you react to the H3 Hassan Piker debate, please? No, I will not because I like my peace of mind too much.
I might. How long is it? Can we cover it in
Extremely
one
long.
stream?
Extremely long.
Maybe I will find highlights. Did you watch it, or is it too bad?
I don't want to watch it. I very purposefully am like, I'm not watching this, to be honest.
Okay. Okay, I will consider it. I might. Yeah. How about this? If there are a lot of comments.
Both of them have displayed behavior in the past that is they have acted in extreme bad faith in the past. So I'm like, I'm not really inclined to want to watch either of y'all. Gaijin celebrating his membership for 40 months.
40 months.
Gaijin king over here. Saying, would y'all consider the Dalai Lama a terrorist? I mean, to be completely honest, I'm just not knowledgeable enough to know about any specific activity to be able to say that one way or another.
I don't like the fact that he sucks on a little boy's tongues in that video.
Happened one time.
Okay, but I don't know. I don't know enough about him.
And Aiden gave a super chat saying, add the 2 Beavis brothers to the 29 killed on October 7th. Well, they're victims of the attack, yeah.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.